Welcome to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht. Today's guest is Teri Brown, author of 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. It's quite a title, Teri.
Yes, it is quite a title, but it was quite an adventure, so I think it needed a title like that.
I like it. All right. Well, so let's start with that. Tell me about your book and what that title means. Where did the title come from?
Okay, so the book is about some lessons that I learned, some rules that I kind of created about life, but I learned these while on a tandem bicycle journey. My husband and I rode from the coast of Oregon to Washington, D.C.,
Oh,
which
oh
is,
my gosh.
yeah,
Okay.
3,102 miles. And when you're on a bicycle for that long, there's a lot of time for thinking and reflecting and yeah, I just kind of came up with some rules. What's interesting is that this book, the whole journey actually came about for two reasons. My husband wanted desperately to do something like this. He's been wanting to do it since 1976. A group of college kids rode across the United States on a bicycle. He was in the military at the time. It's not like he could get time off, but he always thought, oh, I'd love to do something like that. Well, when Bruce and I met, I had gotten out of a 14-year emotionally abusive relationship. And I didn't feel real good about myself. I didn't think I had a lot left to give to the world. I didn't think people felt like I had a lot left to give to the world. And I had been thinking I wanted to do something big and bold. And when he brought this up, I thought, ooh, that would be big and bold, right? So, we decide we're going to do it, that this is something, and I said to him, is this a pipe dream of yours, or will you really, really do it? And he said, no, I really want to. And it was like, count me in. So we ended up on a tandem bicycle because he's an avid cyclist. I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. So we needed to do something that helped kind of give us an equal playing field. I didn't want to ride across the United States with him always 10 miles ahead of me. I
Yeah.
wanted to do this together. And so the whole way across, I started learning a lot of things about the world and myself. um, Realized that I didn't need to prove to anybody that I was worthwhile. I needed to prove that to me. And as we finished up this journey, we're coming into Washington, D.C. I see the flag, the memorial. He says, "That's it, Teri. That's where we're going." And I started to sob. And then I laughed, and then I cried, and then I laughed. I was just a big emotional mess. But what I realized in that moment was I just rode across the United States on a bicycle. I can do anything. It's not a matter of can I do it? It's a matter of what do I want to do? And I decided I wanted to be an author. And 14 months later, my first novel came out. And
Oh,
now it's 3 years later. I have three novels, and this book is coming out. So,
wow. Okay, so I have a lot of questions. So, first of all, how long did it take you? Did you say how long did it take you to go from Oregon to Washington?
so it was 72 writing days, but we were gone for 3 months because you have to take breaks.
Yeah.
Or we did.
Okay.
We're not 20, okay? So we had some breaks that we had to take. So it was 72 writing days.
Okay. All right. And then speaking of age, you and I had a little chat about age before we started recording. How old were you when you did this?
So this was in 2020. I'm currently 61, so that 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So
Oh
I
my
was
God.
57.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And how lo sorry, lots of like rapid fire
Yeah,
questions
no,
right
that's all
now, but
right.
I'm
No, that's
just
all
like,
right.
what? So how long had you been together with, now I just forgot the name, Bruce? Was it Bruce?
Bruce. Yeah.
Bruce.
So
How long had you
Bruce
been
and
together with Bruce at this time? Because you said you were out of a 14-year relationship when you met him, and then like
yeah.
how long had you been together at that
Okay,
point?
so at that point we dated a year and we had been married for 15 months. And then we got
I
on this bicycle and rode across the United States.
I feel like my husband and I would kill each other if we were doing this.
So a lot of people do call a tandem bicycle a divorce machine. And the reason is because you really, really have
Should
to
have
be
warned
able
me
to
about
work.
that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You really have to be able to work together. And if you're not
Okay.
willing to, it's going to be miserable. And
Yeah.
we tell everyone that we experience something that we call tandem time. So that 3 months on a bicycle was like 20 years of marriage.
Yeah.
And that's good actually. We figured out so much about each other and relationships and how to deal with one another and handle one another's emotional whatever it was that we were dealing with. And we
Mm.
learned also how to get over issues quickly because there's nothing worse than riding a tandem bicycle angry at one another.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So you went one direction. Did you then
Yes.
fly the other
So
direction back
we
home?
flew everything out to Oregon.
Okay, okay,
We rode all the way into DC, and then we live in North Carolina. So, and he has a daughter who
okay.
lives near DC. So we had parked our everything there. They picked us up, brought us to their home, and when we felt sufficiently rested, we drove back to North Carolina. So,
Okay. Did you like have you ridden a bicycle since, or was that like enough for a lifetime?
well, a little of both. It is enough for a lifetime. I will never do a ride like that again. That is was big and bold and wonderful. I'm so glad I did it, and I have no need to prove anything to do it again. However, I did enjoy it enough that the next summer we rode up the coast of Maine. And so we did a 300 mile up the coast of Maine. And because we weren't trying to prove anything and didn't feel we had to go a certain number of miles and all of the things, that one was a much nicer trip. It was also shorter. And so when we were done and I came home, I didn't feel like I had my entire life on hold to do this.
Yeah,
Instead, it was a vacation, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So,
So what do you do when you're on a tandem? I always wonder this about like people who, because I'm not a motorcycle rider, and like I always think that about like motorcycle riders. Like what do you do when you're riding? Like how can that be fun? So when you're on a bicycle, I suppose you could maybe talk a little bit easier,
yes, so we
maybe,
do
but
talk. We
okay.
talk, we listen to music. But we're also traveling across country, a lot of which I've not seen. And we're going slow enough that you see it. You know, if you're traveling across Montana in a vehicle, you see the big mountains and you see, certain things if there's like arrows pointing to it, right? But you're not going to see all the wildflowers and you're not going to notice all of those little things. And so we got to see a lot of things that people don't see. For instance, we were in Montana going up this horrible hill. It had not been a great day. And at this point, I'm not looking anymore. I'm looking down and I'm pedaling. I'm just pedaling and I'm almost trying to like forget where I am. It's just let's pedal. We got to get up this hill. And my husband said, "Harry, look." And I looked up and there were horses and they were running with us. And they got kind of to the top and the mare in the front pawing the ground and flipping his mane around. And we went on, and I thought, just ran with horses. Like that doesn't happen, right?
Right.
So that we saw a lot of, and we saw just a lot of cool things, a lot of Americana that you just don't get to see. We got to know most of the train engineers, not by name or sight, but their trains would come. We followed the train track for days, and they would come by. They got to the point that they would toot and wave at us. You know, it was that kind of thing. It was almost like going back in time. And then on top of that, this was the summer of 2020, so it's COVID summer,
Mm,
when everybody else is stuck in their house and feeling like life is over, and we're out there just, I don't know, it was amazing.
Yeah, I thought that when you first said the timing of it, I was like, I wondered how that affected it. Because even like, so did you have an issue? Okay, I still have 52 questions in my head. So, so, like planning out the trip. Like, so
Yeah,
so my mind went to like, did you have any issues with like booking hotel rooms and stuff?
yeah,
Because I remember that time where it was like
right.
hotels either were shut down or if they were open, it was like there was just so many challenges with traveling. So, so that question, but then also like how did you plan out like, okay, did you know like this is how long it's going to take? Like, did you have everything kind of like all your stops planned out in advance, or did you do some of that like on the go?
Okay, so we'll talk about the COVID part first. We did camping and we did motels. So we had a trailer that we pulled with all of our camping gear. And it was a little dicey at times because you would think that you were coming up on something and then you would find it wasn't open. So we did have a lot of, it wasn't quite the way it would have been had it not been COVID. I am a planner. So at home at the kitchen table before we ever left, I had the whole thing worked out. I knew where we would stop every day. Unfortunately, on day one, we did not get as far as I thought, and that was okay. And I rearranged the schedule and made it work. And day two, that was also the case. And day three, I threw that away. So from that point on, what we did was we did have maps, and we would look and say, okay, we'll be coming into a town at 22 miles. We'll be coming into a town at 37 miles. We'll be coming into a town at 52 miles. These are the three possible stops for the day. And so as you'd be coming into the first possible stop, you'd say the next possible stop is 15 miles from here. How do you feel? Can you do another 15? And if the answer was no, that's where you stopped for the day. And if the answer was, oh, sure. And then that's kind of how you did it. There were some days where there weren't those options. We had one day where it was 70 miles between towns and you had no choice.
Mm,
And that was
so
not
you
a
just,
fun day. That was a
yeah,
hard day. But
yeah. Did you did you like mostly bike every day, or did you take like a week? Like, how many days would you stop to just
the
rest?
longest, the longest we stopped, usually just one day, we would take a day break. There was one day where there was horrible weather. We were in Minnesota. The winds were blowing at 75 miles an hour and it was pouring down rain and it was horrible. And that was a 3-day event. So for 3 days, we holed up in a hotel and just
Mm,
waited for it to pass. And then toward the end, we were in Ohio. My husband had, I think we just think it was exercise fatigue, um, where we had gone it had been a couple of bad days, a lot of hills, a lot of just not eating properly. We are 3 miles from the hotel that we're going to stay at, and we've stopped at this little deli. We're going to get some lunch. He's taking care of the bike. I'm answering the question of somebody who's asking what we're doing. And I turn around and he's on the ground. So
no.
he passed out. So I run over to him. He's immediately awake again, but you can tell he's just goofy. Like he's just not making any sense. And so I luckily have some relatives in Ohio who lived about an hour from where we were, and they came and picked us up, and we stayed with them for 4 days. And
Okay.
he slept for 3 of those 4 days.
Oh.
So I just think that we weren't eating properly. From that point on, we almost called the trip at that point. It was like, this
Oh.
is crazy. Why kill ourselves, right? And so we made rules. We wouldn't go more than 30 miles in any given day. We had to make sure that we were eating 3 full meals a day. We had to drink a certain, I had it all listed. And I know he was probably so tired of me after the first 2 days as we got started again. Because like every 10 minutes, I'm going, how are you feeling? Are
You're
you okay?
okay.
Are you okay? How are you feeling? You doing okay? Drink, eat, drink. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Dizzy? Everything okay?
I'm sure. I was going to ask about the weather and how that impacts you. So you answered that. So when you would have weather to deal with, you would just wait it out
Hunker down.
and
Now,
mhm.
sometimes you get caught in it. I mean, we were caught in storms. I got hailed on one time. And so there were storms, but if you could tell that there was something big coming through, yeah, you found a place and you hunkered down as quickly as you could. And um, when we were in Minnesota, we found that the hotel that we stayed in, it was next to a Walmart and an Applebee's. It was like perfect.
Yeah,
Everything that, I mean, there's
yeah.
food and food. You know, if you want a meal someone cooked or you want to just grab something, everything you needed was close, perfect. And we just stayed and slept and watched television and read books and just waited. And then it was done, and it was like, okay, off we go again.
Nice, nice. Wow. Well, so can you tell me, I don't want to ask you for all 10 of your rules because then
No,
that's giving the
no.
whole book away, but can you tell me maybe your favorite rule, or one of the rules out of the
Yeah.
10 that you learned?
So I have two favorites. Can I tell both, or do we have enough time for
Please.
both? Okay.
Yeah.
So one of my rules that I really love is never quit on a bad day. So I told you about that 70-mile day. It was horrible. We had
Mm.
a flat tire 3 different times.
Oh,
We went through a valley of mosquitoes that I swear to you were the size of my fist. It was hot, hot, hot. It was so hilly, and the wind was against us all day. So it was just a miserable day. And at the end of that day, I was done. I wasn't just done for the day, I was done. I never wanted to do this again. I'm done. And I kept a blog the whole way across, and I wrote on my
good
blog
for
to
you.
anyone who was listening, I think we're done. This isn't fun anymore. And I had a friend reach out to me right away who said, what you're doing is amazing. And if you quit today, you could be so proud of yourself. You made it over the Rocky Mountains. Everything is good. However, if you quit on a bad day, you'll always wonder if you could have made it. I
Mm,
recommend that you take it easy for a few days and wait until you no longer have this emotional baggage. And then if you
hmm
still want to quit, you'll feel good about it. Well, the next day we had a fabulous day. And of course, we did make it all the way across. But I have held on to that rule a number of times when things aren't going good in my life, where you just want to throw your arms in the air and say, that's it, I'm done. And it's okay to be done, but you don't want to do it in a way where you then wonder later, was I
Yeah.
really done?
Yeah.
So that's kind of been the rule that has helped me. Now, the rule that's helping me right now, it has a little bit of a sad story. My husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he in June of 2022, and he passed away a month ago.
I wondered
And
about that. I'm glad you told me. Now you're gonna make me cry, but
yeah,
because you and I know you rescheduled this
yes,
interview, and so I didn't want to ask, but oh, I'm so
no,
sorry to
and
hear
he
that.
that's all right. He did pass away a month ago, and on the day that he passed, I had been waiting for the book to come in, and I got my author copy. And it was about 45 minutes before he died. I don't believe he saw it. I talked to him about it, and I crawled up in bed next to him and I started to read it to him. And I got all the way to rule number 3, and I said, rule number 3, do hard things. And he passed away right then, as soon as I said
Mm,
that. And I felt like it was a twofold thing. I was giving him permission to do something that was very difficult for him, which was to go ahead and be done with this fight. He's a 25-year veteran in the Marines. They don't give up. And so for him,
mhm,
I think that was a very difficult decision to recognize that the battle was over. And then I also believe that it was his last words to me, because now I'm having to do hard things. So
yeah.
for me right now, the do hard things is like I wake up in the morning and I look at my calendar and I think, I can't do this. I
Hmm.
can't. And then it's like, nope, do hard things. And so that's been the thing that's kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
keeping me
Um,
going. So
yeah. Well, and by the time this airs, the your book will be out. But as of right
yeah,
now, it's not actually out yet, right?
yeah, it
So
comes out actually on February 14th on
yeah,
Valentine's Day.
on Valentine's Day, which is like what a great way to honor him, and then what a great
Yes.
day for that to come out given your situation. So yeah, I what a like amazing story. I am not a crier, so like the fact that that just brought like tears to my eyes. Ugh. Um, so I want to ask you, I want to go back to you mentioned that you decided you wanted to be an author while you were on this
Yeah.
journey. So
Yeah.
this was not your first book. So tell me about the other. You mentioned that the others are fiction, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
what was the first book that you published?
Okay, so it's called Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, and it's about 3 generations of Ukrainian women. The crazy thing about this book is it came out 4 weeks before the current Ukrainian crisis. So I
Mm.
had no idea that was going to happen, and it was just the timing was incredible. And I have a friend who's Ukrainian who told me this really cool story, something that happened in her own life. And it was so amazing that I tell everyone I wrote 82,000 words of fiction to tell 3 pages of truth. So her story is in it. The last 3 pages of the last chapter really did happen, but everything else is my imagination as to how we could have ever ended up in that place. Um, then my next one is a World War II genre. It's called An Enemy Like Me, and it's based a little bit on family history. We're German American, and it's about a first generation German American who ends up fighting in World War II. He believes he'll fight the Japanese, and he ends up fighting in Germany and realizes he's more like the enemy than he is different from the enemy. And so we look at it from his point of view and also his wife and his child. And then my last one is Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. And it is about 3 generations of healers in the mountains of North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains in the 1890s. So,
Hmm. Nice. Well, you have written a lot of books in 5 years.
yes, I have. But it's something I think I've wanted to do it for a long time and had been too afraid. Like I said, I had been in that bad relationship. When you're in an awful relationship, trying to be an author is too scary, because
Hmm.
you put yourself out on the line, and you need someplace safe to retreat to in case it doesn't go well. And I didn't have that. And then once I was out of that relationship, it's like the words just started pouring out of me. But
Hmm.
I still was afraid to show anybody anything because I was still damaged. And I came home from that ride, and it was like, I don't care. I don't care. Good or bad, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get it out there. I'm gonna learn. If it's bad, I'll learn. This is what I want to do. And yeah, I'm so thankful that we had that opportunity to go on that ride.
Yeah, that's great. So one more question about the book. So
Yep.
what was easier, what was harder to write, the fiction or the nonfiction?
I don't, they both have their challenges. The fiction is hard in that you're creating characters, whereas the nonfiction, the character is me. I mean, I know myself, so that part's easy. But what's hard with the nonfiction is how much do you tell? We had this huge journey. I could have written, a 3 volume, and that's not what people want to read. Nobody wants to travelogue. And so you have to figure out, like, what is the most important gems, and then what stories do you have that can support those gems?
Hmm.
And that's kind of hard to kind of figure out, like, what do people want to hear and what don't they want
Yeah,
to hear? And how much of
yeah.
it do they want to hear?
Yeah, no, I love that. That like just your thought process in that, and like wanting people who are reading it to get the most out of it. And in order to get the
Right,
most out of it, you as the author have to make it not concise, but like you have to like distill it down to those points that are gonna
right.
be the most impactful. So
Because
yeah, I love
nobody
that.
wants to say rule number one, read it, and then have 73 things that explain it. Like
Yeah,
no
there's
one will ever get to rule 10. And so you
right.
have to be able to say, what's the 1 or 2 stories, maybe 3 if they're short, that are
Yeah.
really going to do the most. So I tell people all the time, this is not a travelogue. You're not going to find a day by day. If you want that, I kept a blog. Feel free to go look for it. It's on my website. But if you're wanting to know, like, what did I learn? What were the things that impacted me the most? That's what this book is about.
Hmm. Well, I've always wanted to do, so I'm not a biker at all. I'm not a cyclist. You weren't either, but like not
No.
my thing. But I've always wanted to do the Camino de Santiago in Spain, which is a walking, like it's a
Right.
3 month journey from, I don't remember exactly where, but I went to, when I studied in Spain, we were in the cathedral where like, that
You
where it
finish.
ends.
Yeah.
And so maybe you have re-sparked this in me that maybe I will do this someday finally.
Well, and I tell people all the time that the book, though it's about a physical adventure, can really be about anything that's outside of your normal wheelhouse. So if you're, I don't know, if you're about to become an empty nest couple and you're thinking, what do we do with our lives? This book can help. If you are getting into a new relationship, if you're getting out of a bad relationship, if you're changing jobs, if you're moving to a new area of the country, if you decide you want to take up watercolor, I mean, whatever it is. And I think that's what adventure is when you just kind of get outside of yourself and try something new and big and bold and beyond what you would normally do. If
Hmm.
someone is going to look at you and say, "Oh, really? That's what you're doing?" That's kind of an adventure. And this book will help you think about how to make the most of your life. And then what I really love is at the end of every chapter, there are questions and spaces to write your answers because my 10 rules might not be yours. And that's good. Everyone has their own things that they're going to learn or they're going to need in order to have this adventurous life.
Yeah, nice. Well, so I want to take that moment to plug another episode that I had because I feel like these two tie really closely together. So if somebody's listening and they have not listened to the episode Teenagers, that book is a really good one, like along with this one, because the book was written to talk about the fact that like we don't have to like give up as we're older or like say, oh, I'm too old for that. Like you're a perfect example of like doing that in your late 50s, like that type of adventure. It's pretty impressive that you did that
Well,
and you're never too old.
especially since I haven't been on a bicycle since I was in middle
Right,
school. I mean,
right.
it was a huge undertaking for me to
Yeah,
do. And yeah, I
yeah,
tell people all the time, you're not too old, you're not too heavy, you're not too whatever it is. If you want to do it, you can do it. Because if you
do it.
want something, you will find a way around the obstacles.
Yep.
Now,
And
if you
what's the
don't,
worst that can happen? Like maybe
right,
you do give up halfway through or whatever, but you tried, right?
well, and the thing is then you went further than you would have if you hadn't gone.
Right.
And as my friend told me, you made it over the Rocky Mountains. That's one of the biggest feats ever. And if you go no
Yeah.
further than this, you can pat yourself on the back. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel really strongly people should go out and try and, you know, do the things, do whatever it is that's in your head that excites you. Go ahead and work
Mhm.
toward that.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Teri, thank you so much. I'll link to your book to
Fantastic.
this book in the show notes. Is there any other resource you want to give, like anything that any listeners can follow along with what you're doing, learn more
Yeah.
about your books or anything like that?
Absolutely. If they'll go to my website, which is my name, Teri M. Brown, and that's Terry with one R. And there at my website, you'll see all my books. I have a podcast where I talk with other authors about books that they're reading. And so, I mean, that they've written. And so you can find your next good book for your to be read list. I have a newsletter. I have a contact page where you can reach out. And I always do my very best to get back with people who write in and ask me questions. So if you have something you want to know, feel free to reach out. I love to chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Teri. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
For a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey, join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.